Well, Rick, High School Basketball Weekly took a week off for the holiday season. We want to wish everybody happy holidays, but the high school basketball action didn't take any breaks, and we had some great action during the break.
Yeah, we had some great action throughout Berkshire County, especially locally, and NBCTC was there to do some of those games that we'll talk about very shortly. It's been a funny season so far, Tim. I mean, you got the McCann girls who only played one game. You got the Hoosick boys that played 6, but all on the road. So, it'll all even out at some point, but we got a lot to talk about today, and it's all coming up next on High School Basketball Weekly.
Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
And we're back on High School Basketball Weekly. Tim Moore alongside of my co-host, Rick Bua. And Rick, as we alluded to at the opening, a little bit of a break here with the holiday season, but we still have a lot of high school basketball action to bring to you and to cover and review. And we're going to start right off with the girls and the Lady Hornets from McCann.
Well, Tim, as just mentioned in our opening, the Lady Hornets have only played one game. They beat Mohawk 45-29 with Izzy Lacasse, the outstanding point guard, the sophomore with 24, and Grace Towler adding 8. And they're busy. They're actually playing Pope Francis on January 2nd tonight, and tomorrow they've got Lee, and NBCTC will be down there to cover that game, Kathy Budai's team. So they a lot of practicing, but I'm sure they're getting real itchy, and they'll get caught up at some point.
Absolutely, and that game you talked about, Rick, with Lee, that's a big game in Division 4.
Yeah, it is, because I look at, in Berkshire County anyway, Tim, I look at Lee and possibly Greylock and Drury early on, really early to tell. But I see them being the favorites. Lennox still up and coming and very young, and Mount Everett, of course, very young and rebuilding with a brand new coach. So, but for McCann, especially in Division 4, regardless if it's in the Tri-County or their league or not, or Berkshire County, it's a pretty good game. And they've been competitive with Lee the last couple of years. So we'll see how that works out.
For a team that had a slow start schedule-wise, the Lady Blue Devils of Drury, Rick, they finally got their season off and running, and they started off with a bang.
Yeah, they did. They in a game that we covered, they defeated Mount Everett pretty handily, 67-22. Allison Felix with a big night, the senior with 18 points, Kayla McGrath and Tess Zoido each with 11. And it was a game where they just took over, and you know what? As I said, new coach, Coach Rowe, retiring after the end of last season, and you lost Gwen Carpenter and one of the Ulrich girls, and you lose a 2,000-point score. It's hard to come back very, very quickly. So they're going to be okay, but they're going to have to build their program back up. For the Blue Devils, it was a big win. Unfortunately, they came across a very talented and hungry Mount Greylock team, as freshman Emma Galuli led the way with 26 points in the victory over Drury, 52-43, up at the Bucky Bullet Gym. And I thought that was a big win for Mount Greylock.
Oh, absolutely, Rick. That had to be one of the bigger wins so far early in the season.
Drury was held scoreless field goal-wise, Tim, for almost the entire, I think it was the entire first quarter. I don't think that they got a field goal until about the 4-minute mark of the second quarter. It was all free throws. They did stage a little comeback and made it 35-30, but just wasn't enough. And they played really, really hard at Chicopee Comp over the weekend, losing 40-38, trailing by 10 after 3 and making a comeback. Just fell a little bit short. Again, Allison Felix led the way with 12 and Kayla McGrath with 10. And they're going to be playing Hampshire on the 2nd of January.
And Rick, you indicated you were at that game between Mount Greylock and Drury. Really coming out party for the freshman Emma Galuli. She had a huge game for Greylock.
Yeah, she really did. And when you look at Coach Jacoby's girls, Tim, you know that they're led by their point guard Madison Ross and by sophomore Delaney Babcock and Emma Stevens, but Emma Galuli was incredible. She had been practicing her shots, and Coach Jacoby talked to me after the game and said she worked really, really hard after practice, and she had an extremely good night, and she led the way with 26. Well, when you hold the two top scorers, to a 13, you think you're going to be in that ball game.
And it's a huge win for Greylock. Of course, they're in the Southern Division with Drury. They take down Drury on their home court up at Drury. And, of course, Greylock, they want to finish second in the South, either win it or finish second to qualify for the Western Mass Tournament. So this is a big, big early season victory for the Mounties.
Yeah, they're 2-2 right now. They did lose over the weekend to Pittsfield with Maddie Ross leading the way with 9. They've got Hoosick Valley coming up. So tough part of their schedule. It's going to be really, really tough with the North teams versus the South teams. I don't see a lot of balance there this year, Tim. So we'll have to see what happens. I think that they're going to be very competitive, and it looks really good for Coach Jacoby's team for 1 or 2 right now. But it's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be a battle with Lee Drury and Mount Greylock for the South.
And for Mount Greylock, the Lady Mounties, as you indicated, Rick, they're 2-2 now, coming off those 2 victories. But they played a tough schedule so far.
Yeah, and Coach Jacoby's always going to have them ready, and he knows what needs to be done. He knows he's playing Division III basketball. He knows he's in Berkshire County. But I think he just wants his team to get better, and that's what he strives for every year, is to get the kids to play like a team. And they work the ball real well. I was very impressed with the Lady Mounties.
And talking about another team that's gotten off to a good start, the Lady Hurricanes of Hoosick Valley. They stand now with a record of 3-2.
Yeah, they beat Greenfield. Now Greenfield, again, is a program that Coach Hickey's been building for years, but of course he lost his daughter Reagan last year and Samantha Smith to graduation, and so graduation really hit hard. And we talk about this all the time. There's always graduating classes every June for every team.
Absolutely.
So, but nevertheless, they did knock off Greenfield 70-31, with Riley Robinson leading the way with 17. Kaylee Wynn added 11 for the Hurricanes, and then of course in the game that you covered, Tim, in the finals, the rematch of the state D3 finals from last year, St. Mary's of Lynn came up and took down the Hurricanes to win the championship 62-32.
It was an intense game when we were there, Rick, for that one. And it was a rematch of that state tournament game. Both teams played with tremendous intensity. St. Mary's of Lynn had the better of it. But I'll tell you, it was a real tough game for the about first quarter and a half. Riley Robinson had to leave the game with an ankle injury. And that hurt Hoosick Valley. But hats off to St. Mary's of Lynn. They came to Hoosick Valley on a mission. They wanted to send a message that, hey, we're at the top here in Division III. And
right.
I think a message in case these two teams were to meet later on down the road in the tournaments. They wanted to leave no question that they are going to be a force statewide in Division III.
And the girls did, Tim, rebound very nicely by beating Monument Mountain 63-33 with Avery McGrath scoring 14 and Shaylee Levesque 11. So, there's only so many times we can talk about Ellie Mendel and Lexi Mercer's graduation, losing 2 1,000-point scores, which is almost unheard of. But Coach Ron Wojcik has said, and he talked to you in his interview at the Jamboree, he's got to get kids to step up, and he's getting kids that are stepping up, and they're just going to have to work together as a team. Things are going to be a little different. The chemistry is a little bit different, but Hoosick's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I still like them. With everybody else in the north, pretty much.
Right.
That's going to be wide open.
Wide open division. Hoosick Valley and Greylock now going to play each other tomorrow night on January 3rd. That's going to be the next game for both teams. That should be a good one, a real test for Coach Jacoby's squad as those two Northern Division teams, Northern Berkshire teams, tangle in their next game. But that brings us now on the girls' side, our player of the week, Rick, and a new name popping out here in girls' high school basketball.
Yeah, and we do every week, Tim. It gets harder and harder to choose, but we had to choose Emma Galuli, the outstanding sharpshooting 9th grader from Mount Greylock, 26 versus Drury. Now, she scored in every game, maybe not double figures every game, but she's coming off the bench for Coach Jacoby, and she's adding a lot of value. She rebounds, she passes the ball well, but she's an incredible shooter, and you cannot leave her open. No. And she single-handedly took the Drury down, especially in the second half. She had some great shots here. So, she's very worthy of the Player of the week. You see her
Yeah.
knocking down a three here.
Yeah, on fire, no question about it, and that's important in basketball. She's going to be able to provide that offense for the Mounties, and I'll tell you, I think we're going to hear from her more and more as the season goes along. I don't think this is a one-game aberration.
No, I don't think so either. And as far as her team's concerned, I think when they start playing as a team, and Delaney Babcock is doing everything. She is doing everything that may not show up in the scoring column, of the stats. But nevertheless, Emma Galuli, very worthy. Just a ninth grader, but just by that one night performance, I thought she was worthy of our Player of the Week.
I agree wholeheartedly with that selection. And again, we're going to be watching Emma as the season goes along. The young freshman has made a mark early on here in this season. And as we said, she is this week's Player of the Week on High School Basketball Weekly for the girls. Switching over to the boys' side, Mount Greylock. On the boys' side, they also had a really big win in North Division play.
Yeah, they knocked off Wacona, Tim, in Williamstown, and as we talked about a few minutes ago off air, it doesn't matter. Coach Belcher has got an incredible team, and our first couple of shows, I really thought when we were ranking some of the teams what it might look like. I thought Coach Belcher's team was going to be right at the very top with Taconic. You never know with PHS, you never know with Hoosick or Drury, but when you take down a Coach Belcher team with the kids that he has, with the size and athleticism that they have, that's an incredible win. It was a great win. It was because they had also beaten South Hadley 60-50, or lost to South Hadley. I'm sorry, 60-59, and they had lost their first two games by a total of 4 points, and 48-44. That's a great defensive struggle against Wacona, but they're getting some balanced scoring from their two top kids, and that's Toby Farrell and Derek Parrish, the senior and the sophomore.
Right, and that's just a big victory for them. This South Division, we talked a little bit about it on the boys' side. You got Greylock, but you also have a very good Lennox team that you've seen already. So this is going to be quite a tussle in the South Division between Greylock and Lennox to see who wins that. But again, once again, it comes down to if you can finish first or second in your league, you can punch a ticket to the Western Mass Tournament. And in Division III, that's really what Greylock's looking to do. They play this tough Berkshire County schedule, but they want to get to the tournament.
They do, and a couple weeks ago, we basically said. They've got Toby Farrell, Derek Parrish, Mitch Jesuit, and they have a lot of role players too. And a couple weeks ago, I would have told you, and I might have even said it on our show, Tim, that I liked Monument Mountain with their sharpshooters and with Dion Brown. But when you see Mount Greylock knock off Wacona, they can be competitive against a North team, a top North team. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be right there with Monument and Lennox. And you talked about the Lennox boys. They've started off 5-1, defeating McCann, losing to Taconic, but then knocking off Drury, as we talked about a few minutes ago, and then most recently knocked off Notre Dame in overtime at home. So they're one of the teams that have played 6 games like Hoosick Valley boys, and Greylock, I think, they're going to be fine.
McCann Hornets, they're off and running as well now, but they've suffered a couple losses early on here, but I still think they're going to right the ship and be a team to be reckoned with in Division IV.
Yeah, they're 1-2 right now, Tim. They lost to Lennox 57-39, and Darius Tavani led the way with 7, Sean Sumner with 6. And then they finally got a home game, and they lost their home opener to Lee in overtime, 53-48 with Darian Tavani, Darius' twin brother, with 12. And then finally got their first win of the season by knocking off Gateway, 57-41 with Darius Tavani with 11, Lucas Jamros with 10. And Lucas Jamros and Bruce Davis, the two seniors, right, the 3-year starters, have been a little bit quiet, and as soon as they get going, they're going to be fine. One of their big losses, of course, was the transfer of Keegan Vidal to Drury, losing their point guard. But Coach Bullitt has filled in nicely. A couple other kids transferred also to Hoosick Valley, Jackson Owensby and Logan Davis, who's sparking the Hurricanes right now.
Right.
And those are pretty big losses. I mean, sometimes McCann is the benefactor, and sometimes they're not. But Coach Bullitt will keep his kids charging in Division IV, and they'll be very competitive in their league, Tim. I can assure you that.
Yeah, I think they will too, Rick. There's Division IV. They got a lot of people coming back, and I look forward to them being right in the mix. But right now, we're pleased to have calling in here on High School Basketball Weekly the head coach of Mount Greylock Mounties, Bob Thistle, and I think we're going to be able to have Coach Thistle join us here in a minute if we can connect the phone call. But
Give him a few seconds. He's in the team picture.
all right, so we're told that he's going to be available in just a little bit. So when he's available, we'll get right to him. Coach Thistle always joining us here on High School Basketball Weekly. But while we're waiting for him, let's talk a little bit about the Hoosick Valley Hurricanes, Rick. They have played 6 games and they stand at 500-3-3.
Yeah, they played 6 games. They have not played in Cheshire yet, so they haven't worn their home whites, I don't believe. But that's not a bad start considering that they're all on the road. They had a nice win against Lee, 76-49. Isaiah Stubbs, the outstanding senior, with 28. Joe Molino added 17. Lost to Mount Greylock, 68-59, with Stubbs again with 29.
Right.
And Cole DeRozier with 13. Husick actually led that to 52-42 after 3 quarters, but couldn't hang on. But they did rebound nicely by beating East Hampton, 78-56. Isaiah Stubbs with 29, 18 in the first quarter. Logan Davis, the transfer I just mentioned from McCann,
Right.
The sophomore with 18 points with 3 threes included, and Sean Kastner added 10. They're getting some balanced scoring too. Of course, their point guard, Carson Meswar, still out with that football
Right.
injury. But once they start getting a little bit of home cooking and things get working, and I think it'll make them a better team being in the north, just like Drury. It's going to make you stronger when you have to play PHS, Taconic, and Wacona each twice. So.
In other season, I'd say this, Rick, if you look at the Hoosick Valley season so far, probably the disappointment was losing to Greylock. They had Greylock by double digits going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
And admittedly, it was played at Greylock, but that was a game that probably Coach Hart would say slipped away from them, and they may look back on it at the end of the season as a big, big loss. So of all their games they played so far, I would say really that's a disappointing result for them.
Yeah, they could easily be 4-12 on the road. But while we have a minute, Tim, we talked about the Lennox boys,
Right.
But the Taconic boys also they got off to an 0-2 start. They lost to St. John's Prep and to Putnam, and there's nothing shameful for losing to those 2 clubs. But they've been on a roll also, and they've won 4 in a row by beating Green Tech, Lennox. And then the Boston tournament, Tim, beating Cambridge, Ringe and Len, and Acton Boxborough. Cambridge, Ringe and Len by 61-58 score, and then Acton Boxborough 58-48. But, we talked about Isaac Percy and Mohamed Sonogo, and we know they were going to be the 1-2 punch, and they
Right.
still are. But, again, we talk about those athletes down there, and that Coach has down at Taconic. And I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with as we take our call.
Right. Right now we are pleased to have with us here on High School Basketball Weekly this week the head coach of Mount Greylock Mounties, Bob Thistle. Coach Thistle, once again, thank you for joining us here on High School Basketball Weekly, and really congratulations on a pretty good start here to this young basketball season. Coach Thistle, can you hear us? Well, we had some technical difficulties with the phone call. So until we get that patched together, Rick, we will continue on with the North Division and the Drury Blue Devils. They got off quick, but they've had some tough games so far.
Yeah, they won their first 2, and then they fell on the road to Monument 75-54. Drury led after 1 by 9 points, 21-12, but then it got outscored 63-33 the rest of the way. Hunter Sarkis and Louis Gelati each with 12, and Keegan Vidal added 10. The Blue Devils played without their leading scorer, Scott McGuire. No excuses. Coach said would never make up excuses.
No, he doesn't.
But he's going to put on the kids that are available for the game, and that's just the way it went. And then they lost a real tough one, I thought, Tim. One that I had them in the win column, as good as the Lennox boys are. But they lost at home to Lennox 65-54. Tim Brazo,
Right.
The sophomore with 11, Hunter Sarkis with 10. So, some growing pains for Drury this year. A lot of younger kids.
Right.
There are times when Coach Reset has a couple of sophomores and a couple of freshmen out there. And he's getting contributions from Gelati, from Ben Moulton, from Anthony Pettengill, and from Tim Brazo. So he's getting a lot of contributions from his 9th and 10th graders. And Keegan Vidal is still working his way into the system and is progressing nicely, I think, at the point. And then Hunter Sarkis is playing the same role he always has. I think he's going to have to score doubles. And then and Scott McGuire. McGuire started off the season, averaging almost 30 points a game. And if he gives them what he should, then Coach Russell will be in good shape.
Okay, we do now have with us the head coach of the Mount Greylock Mounties, Bob Thistle, here on High School Basketball Weekly. Coach, thank you for joining us here on High School Basketball Weekly, and we just want to kind of get your thoughts here on the early part of this season, as you've had a couple of really big games that Greylock has pulled out, and you're off to a pretty good start.
Hey, yeah, thanks. Sorry we got disconnected. I appreciate you having us, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you guys tonight. Yeah, it's always a battle, Worcester County basketball, and we've got some great parity in the league this year, some really strong teams, of course, but I'm pleased with how the kids have been working so far.
I mean, really, Coach, probably if somebody asked about the early eye-opening wins or games of the year, it would probably be your impressive victory over Wacona just recently, and that has to be a big win for your team.
Yeah, Rick, we came in and we lost a couple of tough games to Turner's Falls and South Hadley. Believe it or not, by a combined, I think, 3 points between the two games.
Yes.
And I was talking to coaches. I talked to coaches to learn from them and to gather information and all around our league. And, you don't know with teams. Sometimes teams, that can really, the die can be cast in those first couple of games. But the kids are determined. They work hard every night. And, you see a team like Wacona come into your gym. We had scouted them. Coach Belcher does a great job. But, they're 6'5", 6'5", 6'4" across that line, and they're long, and they've got to be one of the favorites to compete for the D3 crown. And our kids did two things really well that night. I give them all the credit. We practiced and worked on getting back in transition because the Huben kid is a scoring machine. He's off to the races. So we slowed him down, controlled the tempo. And then, we threw a little junk defense at Huben, who's going to get his points. I mean, I think he had a game where he had 40 this year in the 30, maybe 32 against their win against Monument.
Yeah.
So we held them to 20, and, Mac Waynick played some great defense on them. And, yeah, it's a long way to go. We've got a tough one tonight against Pittsfield High, and then Drury Monday. It's never easy any given night in Berkshire County, but we're pleased with that game, and, on to the next one.
Coach, we were talking about parity. Tim and I were talking a little bit about boys and girls basketball in Berkshire County. And the South for the boys looks just like it does for the North. It's just so wide open. And I think you've opened a lot of eyes with even those tough losses. But I just, do you see the parity the way we do this year for the boys anyway in the North and South?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll see how the season goes. I think, you mentioned surprises. I think there'll be a lot of, surprises this year just because teams are going to battle. But you look at, Lennox beating Drury early on. I know the McGuire kid, had some foul trouble and things like that, but that's a South team beating a North team. And, you got, Monument, beating up on teams. They beat Hoosick over there and we beat Wacona. So I think there is that parity. There's some tough teams. I mean, we're focused on a D2 team tonight, Pittsfield High. who I don't know the lay of the land in D2. I know it's been Taconic for the last couple of years, but I think Pittsfield and Taconic are going to have great battles. But in D3, we look at North and South, but in D3, certainly you got Sabbath, the defending champs. We went to see them the other night, and Wacona did beat them. And then you got Monument with Deion Brown, and
Right.
those teams. We're fortunate, and I say that carefully, that we get to play Monument twice, only because they just make you better.
Right.
And we played Wacona our one and only time, and they make you better. And I think you're trying to grow your team. You're trying to find out who you are. You're trying to deal with adversity and injury and setbacks, and you're just trying to be hopefully playing your best ball at the end of the season. We're into the grind now. I mean, January is 8, 9, 10 games, and you just got to keep going. It's a marathon, and we're going to have some tough losses. We've been in every single ball game. We could be 4-0, we could be 0-4.
Right.
And so we're sitting here 2-2, and not satisfied, but just trying to get better.
Coach, you've been at this game for quite a number of years as a coach. What does it say about your team? That Hoosick Valley game, you were down by double digits going into that fourth quarter, and your team really kept playing and kept grinding.
Yeah, thank you. I think you said it. I mean, you want the ball to go in the basket. You work hard every day in practice to run stuff that's going to put kids in position to be successful, the shooters to be open and the bigs and things like that. But, like in life, you have games where the ball goes in, ball doesn't go in. But so sometimes you can't control it. You just have a good day, a bad day. But one thing you can control is how hard you work. And that does transcend right past basketball and into life, which is the game's never over. You just keep working. And we switched things up. The Stubbs kid, same thing. You can't really shut them down. You can't shut down Cuban.
Right.
You can't shut down Trey Hodge from Sabbath, but you can try to slow him down. You can try to make other people beat you a little bit. And Stubbs killed us. He had 27 going into the fourth, but Mac Waynick really wanted him and did a great job as we threw a little wrinkle at him in the last quarter and held him to 2. We're starting to make free throws now. That really hurt us in the first couple games. And but yeah, I think it says that we're going to give you our best every night. Now, we're up against it tonight. Pittsfield's a great team. Jury with the McGuire kid Monday, but
Yep.
you just want to just find out, who you are in all this. Are you going to stop? Are you going to play 4 hard quarters? And so yeah, I'm proud of the kids so far. But it's kind of wide open. I think if you were to look back in the lay of the land for D3 last year, you'd probably say, maybe some teams would disagree, but it was Sabbath's championship to lose.
Right.
I mean, Wacona had a great run. Monument went deep into the tournament. The year before, it was really East Hampton's tournament to lose. And then the year before that, we played Palmer in the finals, and they had 2,000-point scores. I think we lost by 5 or 6, but it was their tournament to lose. But there's certainly those teams I mentioned, Monument, Wacona, Sabbath, and there's another layer of teams. Believe me, South Hadley beat us. They got some Kerry kid, and they're well-coached, new coach this year.
Right.
But I think it's pretty wide open.
Great.
And I think it's, where you end up after that 20th game.
Well, I can tell you, Coach, we're looking forward to covering a lot of games in Berkshire County between all the good teams that you got, Lennox, Monument, and your guys in the South and in the North Division. We're looking forward to a lot of great basketball action, and we want to wish you the best of luck going down the road the rest of the season, and thank you once again for joining us here on High School Basketball Weekly.
Hey, thanks for having me. I think you're right. Lennox is a team to watch. In D4 beating Drury, it's going to be really fun this year.
Absolutely,
so thanks
Coach.
for covering the games, and Happy New Year as well to you guys.
Happy New Year, Coach, and
Same to
good
you.
luck the rest of the way. Take care.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Bye-bye.
Coach Bob Thistle of the Mount Greylock Mounties, and that leads us right now, Rick, to our Boys Player of the Week and a repeat.
Yeah, we have a repeat. We've got 2, like we did the last show. A repeat, our first repeat. Well, first of all, we're going to feature Toby Fail, the sharpshooting senior from Mount Greylock, the 4-year starter for Coach Thistle. Look at some of those numbers: 27 versus South Hadley in a tight loss, 21 in a comeback victory over Hoosick Valley, and 17 in that big 48-44 win against Wacona. And also the repeat is Isaiah Stubbs. Now, when's the last time, Tim, you had numbers up like that? Now,
Right.
maybe sometime later this year, Scott McGuire might have numbers like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about local kids, 28 versus Lee, 29 versus Greylock, 29 versus East Hampton, and he's not disappointing. He's the reason that they've balanced their record out at 3-3. So,
And he is the real deal offensively, no question about it. Well, Rick, that's going to do it once again this week for High School Basketball Weekly. Next week, we're going to be back with our first ranking in Division III and Division IV for the year. So you want to tune in next week to see us. You can see us here on channel 1302 every Thursday evening, 7:30 this time, Friday, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and then once again, Sunday night at 7 o'clock. So for Rick Bua, Tim Morey, we're going to see you next week on High School Basketball Weekly.
so long, everybody.